I've lived with a couple for a little over a year and a half. I'm in my early 20s, they're in their early 30s. The boyfriend works 2 minimum wage jobs, at least 50 hours a week, in order to provide for the two of them as the girlfriend is striving to be an influencer and doesn't have a job. She spends most of her time taking pictures to post on Instagram and DMing brands trying to get sponsorships. So far no income has come from this. Last week, the boyfriend had a complete breakdown while the girlfriend wasn't home and tells me he's exhausted from being extremely overworked. He's straight up sobbing, saying that even though he's working back-to-back shifts, he still isn't making enough money to support the both of them and, which I didn't know about till now, her frivolous spending. He even had to ask his parents to help with this month's rent. I felt really bad for the guy. Skip forward to last night, and I'm sitting chatting with the girlfriend, and the topic of money came up. She started to complain that they weren't making enough money for her to do the things she wanted. I politely asked her if getting a job and doing the Instagram thing on the side was an option, and she immediately got defensive. She told me that of course, that isn't an option, and that she shouldn't have to put her dreams on hold. Confused, I asked her what those dreams are. She said to inspire people. And then I said, which I probably shouldn't have, to do nothing? She got really offended and said that there's so much that goes into it that I could never understand. I mean, the girl takes pictures of lats in her in yoga poses. She doesn't even edit them, just uses the default filters on the app. I didn't want to argue about the logistics of influencing, so I instead brought up my concern for her boyfriend and told her that I think he may be overworking himself, he's not happy, and he needs her help to support them financially. She says, well, I don't understand why we both have to be unhappy. At least one of us is pursuing our aspirations. To that, I said, well, if your aspirations are to do nothing while your partner busts their butt to support you, then your aspirations are freaking pathetic. Later that evening I get a text from the boyfriend saying what I said crossed a line, and now because of me, she thinks that he believes she does nothing and her dreams are pathetic. I feel bad, but holy crap, I couldn't just sit by and bite my tongue. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, she has no idea what she is doing. My BFF started a YouTube channel on the side. It's a niche interest. After X years they have enough subs to make about 10K from it. They don't rely on that income, it's fluid and changes month to month. 99% of people who call themselves an influencer or an entrepreneur are self-absorbed morons that can't function in real-world jobs because they are idiots. Whether they are selfish, self-absorbed, lazy, millennial-esque, refuse to follow rules, refuse to work menial jobs, refuse to put their phone down, not good working with groups or coworkers, can't be bothered to follow a basic dress code, won't clean bathrooms, don't show up to work on time, etc. Not the idiot. Sometimes tough love is the best way. I hate Instagram for the influencers, like who actually buys something an influencer recommends when you know they are being paid to promote it. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Good on you for standing up for your mate. You probably have made life a bit more difficult for him in the short term, so you could apologize for that. I am sure, if you say it was coming from a place of care and worry for him, he will appreciate it once the influencer gets over themselves. I hope your roommate breaks up with her, and in a year or two you can have a drink, a laugh and a cheers dodging for that bullet. Not the idiot. But she's more of an idiot here than you, cause it can take a long time to get followers on YouTube and especially Instagram, since there is a lot of people doing what she's doing, and you need a freaking plan nowadays to actually start making freaking money on these platforms. Like I have a plan, and I'm a teenager. And my plan also includes trying to find a job in the meanwhile, and she's being hella selfish here because she's just taking photos of herself and her freaking energy drinks while she can also freaking get a part-time job. Sometime you have to do crap that makes you unhappy to make your way in life. My wife and I got a divorce last year. Our relationship failed after she was charged with felony credit card fraud and ended up pleading guilty to a lesser charge. She had been a stay-at-home mom to our 2 sons, 5 and 3, and had taken credit cards out in my mom's name to pay for God knows what. She shattered my trust. I work full-time and make a decent living, but nothing extravagant. I had no clue what my wife was doing until cops showed up at my door with a warrant and took my wife away in cuffs and took 2 laptops as evidence. When I got the full story, I filed for divorce immediately. Aside from being a criminal, she was a good mom. She tried to justify what she did by saying she was just doing what was best for our kids, which I felt was total crap given that she never mentioned wanting for anything, and anytime she asked to spend on something I almost always said yes. I hired a good lawyer and asked for full custody of my kids. My ex begged me not to do that, saying she needed her kids. But she was still looking at up to a year in jail, and nothing her lawyer said could sway the judge to grant her anything more than supervised visitation. She ended up doing 90 days in jail, paying some fines and restitution, but I've allowed her to see our sons almost every time she's asked. The last year has been total hell, but we've made it work. A few months ago I was offered a much more lucrative position a few states away. I talked with my lawyer about what it would mean if I moved and what the process was. He said that, since I have full custody, I have to file a petition with the court to move. So I told my wife what I wanted to do and she exploded. She claimed I was stealing her kids from her, that she's made a lot of strides to get herself to a better place, and that she would fight me tooth and nail for her kids. Well, I filed the petition, got the go-ahead from the courts, and accepted the job. When the judge gave his ruling, my wife burst into tears and began sobbing. It was heartbreaking. I know in my head that I'm doing the right thing for my sons. They are young enough that a move like this won't be too traumatic, but I also feel like their lives have already been completely overturned, and I'm just adding more to that. As for my wife, she's a wreck. She's been begging me to reconsider the move, trying everything from guilt trips, manipulation, bargaining. It's like she's going through the stages of grief. But from my point of view, she did this to herself. She lied and broke the law. I have very little sympathy for her. I know at some point she will probably try to file for partial custody, and I'm prepared for that. For now, I'm just trying to do what's best for me and my sons. Does that make me an idiot? Not the idiot. Straight up, she committed a felony. She defrauded your mother for makeup and clothes. $30,000 is a year of college for me. I think that you definitely need to get yourself and your children into therapy to work through these issues. And while everyone is saying you are the idiot for not keeping their mother in their life, she literally defrauded your mother, who you said was on a fixed income, and will death struggle from this. I find it interesting that people act as though her white-collar crime means that she should be allowed around your sons, and her being in their life is a priority. White-collar crime is real crime. You are the idiot. You are using your children as a tool to continue to punish your ex-wife. You hit her right where it counts, in her family. You can delude yourself as much as you want and say you won't alienate your kids against her, and this is a great opportunity. Those are excuses to make yourself feel better, and you know this, otherwise you wouldn't be posting on here. I don't want to take away from everything you and your kids went through, but you admit in your post she was a great mom. This is your way to punish her, and it's petty as hell to use your kids as a tool. Not the idiot. She did this to herself. She'd be moving with you and the kids if she wasn't a criminal. The court has allowed it. However, I would seriously reconsider this if I were you. In the future, your boys will remember that you moved them away from their mother, causing harm to their relationship with both her and you. This will likely poison their relationship with you and deprive them of bonding with her. It's your call, but I foresee your sons resenting you in the future. Whether you intend to take them from your mother or not, whether she is a bad influence on thee or not, they will see it that way. You should see a therapist. You are not coping with the divorce and what your wife did in a healthy way. Backstory to my mother. My husband and I got engaged in 2015 and spent a year planning the wedding. He and I went to different venues, picked our different vendors. After all, it's our wedding. I brought my mom along for a few things, and it was always an immediate regret. I was so happy and excited, and she took the smile right off my face by complaining about absolutely everything. She didn't want me to get married in this church or that, and have a reception at this place or that, didn't like anything. I finally stopped bringing her around with these decisions because she was making the one of the most enjoyable moments of my life utterly miserable. My parents had offered me $X for the wedding. My fiancé and I could spend it on a house, put it in the bank, pay for the wedding, whatever we wanted. After going over the guest list, my mom had said I needed to invite her sister, S. Her sister and I do not get along, and I hadn't talked to her in almost 10 years. I had told my mom that I would not be inviting S. She was furious. So then it turned into an ultimatum of, if you don't invite S, then you don't get money. I took a few days and calmly went back and said, we would truly appreciate the money, however if it's a deal breaker for you, then we decline. My mom is aware of the rough relationship I have with her sister. Shortly after that it became, if you don't invite S, then I'm not going to your own wedding. My own mother choosing not to go to my wedding. So I said, if that's how you feel, I can't change your mind. So then it turned into my dad calling me, sobbing, and begging me to invite S, because mom is making his life miserable, and is telling him, if I can't get you to change your mind, mom is going to divorce me. Later my brother called me and said, mom called me, and wants you to invite S, and if you don't do it, I won't go. I still did not cave. I was mentally and emotionally screwed up. Mom and dad came to the wedding after all. Brother did not. Also mind you, my mom and dad eloped, S was not in attendance to their wedding, and my brother got married at the courthouse, S was not in attendance. I am now 10 weeks pregnant with my first child, my parents' first grandchild. They are over the moon excited, and so am I. Here's my question, would I be the idiot if I have a conversation with my mom ahead of time laying out ground rules about this being my child not hers? That my husband and I will choose a name and raise the baby how we see fit. That she will not be making any unilateral decisions affecting my child without my consent. Because I can say now that with 100% certainty, if my husband and I choose a name and love it, she will make a face of disgust if it's not one of the names she wants. She'll tell me that my decision about a stroller or crib is not the right one. I'm afraid she'll ruin a portion of my journey of pregnancy by telling me I'm not doing things right. Not the idiot, but not necessary now. You do your thing, take care of you and your baby, and if she tells you anything remotely threatening like, if you don't buy that stroller then blah blah, then tell her to shut up. Right now this is not necessary. But do not count on her for money for the baby. Because then she'll want to have a say. Like you have to give her my name as a middle name, or we don't pay. If something like that happens just be okay, don't pay. You also don't have to meet her, you have the power now. Also, if your mother is that much toxic, I advise you to be careful with the relationship you want her to have with your baby. Not the idiot. Don't tell anyone what your name choices are. They will ruin it for you. We talked openly about choices for our daughter, and oh boy. I actually got lectured when I didn't name my son the male choice we decided on for our daughter. How dare I prevent others from naming their sons, that if I wasn't going to use it. I never restricted anyone from using the name. I have no idea where that came from, but whatever. You could always do what my cousin did. She gave her baby a nonsense name until he was born. It kept everything light and fun. Little Luigi was born, and then given a name that was perfect. Here is my advice, once she steps over the line that you mentally set, you say, Mom, I do not appreciate your input. If you respond negatively again, I will have to stop sharing my news. If this is with your baby, you say, Mom, you have to always have to X with the baby. If you do not respect what I tell you, you will no longer see the baby. I had to do this with my mother-in-law. After 3 months she finally caved and apologized. She had to admit she was wrong and accept our rules. She was totally expecting us to call her pleading for her advice after a few days. I, 19, was adopted at birth by my parents, 61, 62, and they also adopted my brother, 26, from a different family. My brother was diagnosed with ADHD a few years before me. My parents were fairly good about it and tried to get me support. They did invalidate me a bit, but I always just chalked it up to them not understanding. They are both neurotypical, since my brother had the same experience. In grade 7 and 9 I was diagnosed with comorbid anxiety and depression. In my first year uni I was diagnosed dyscalculia, math dyslexia. My second year at uni I was diagnosed with HEDS, genetic disability, and last month I was diagnosed with autism. As I've gotten my diagnoses, my parents have slowly been being less okay with them, invalidating me more, and showing me less love. Yesterday I went to an ed specialist, and my mom wanted to come along. I assumed it was for support or something. When the specialist recommended that I use mobility aids, nothing too big, just braces and a cane, to prevent further problems, my mom started questioning him in weird ways, interrupting him, and generally being crappy and behaving like a child. After the appointment in the car, my mom was pretty much sobbing and raving the whole time. I didn't know what I would be getting into. You're more work than I expected, and I don't know what I did to deserve this, or just some of the examples of things she said. I told her that her words were hurtful, but she continued and finally said, "You were a bad investment." At this point I completely lost my temper and snapped back, "You should have bought a different kid if you wanted to avoid the terrible investment of raising me." The rest of the car ride neither of us spoke, and I dropped her off at her house. This morning my dad sent me an angry text telling me that what I said was completely unacceptable and I needed to apologize. My brother thinks I'm in the right, even if I was a bit harsh, and the rest of my family are divided between the two. So, I ask, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. As someone with autism and AIDS I can say you ain't not the idiot at all. My mom has spent my whole life complaining about how hard it has been to raise me and how much extra work I am. Though I'm not adopted, I know the feeling of just wanting to yell at this type of person. You are 100% what she signed up for. Kids do not just exist for Hallmark moments, they are there for you to raise and love, and that's what you deserve. You are not worth anything less because of your disability. I hope you get the disability aids you need to love a close, go normal life and find a good support network. If you ever need to talk, I'll try and answer as soon as I can. Not the idiot. I bet she's twisting the story too. If you're adopting, especially at a young age, babies or toddlers, etc., you need to expect that down the road some kids might develop disabilities, or you might notice the disabilities when they get to their development stages, like taking longer to start talking, slow learning, short attention span, excessive moods, physical problems or abnormalities. Some of these are noted after birth, etc. So obviously, if you won't be able to handle them, you shouldn't adopt them, or just not adopt in general. She should have expected children are gonna be a lot to handle, even if they are teens, especially when they have disabilities. Not the idiot, not even a little. My child struggled for years with severe, debilitating anxiety, which we eventually learned was interconnected with ADHD and ASD. Did I ever consider how I would react to such a diagnosis before he was born? No. Would I ever say such hurtful things to him about it? Never. Have we done everything in our power to help him? Absolutely. A parent's job, whether by birth or adoption, is to support and love their child, regardless of the curveballs life throws at you. Do you have any aunts, uncles, or other extended family who can help where your parents have failed? Be strong, you can do anything even without them.